Buckingham Palace, where the crown jewels shine so bright, lives a queen, a monarch, a symbol of power and might. Her name is Elizabeth, a name that's known so well. A life of duty, a life of duty, a story to be told, of tea and crumpets, of pomp and circumstance, of a life that's been scripted. But in the streets of London, a different queen, a rebel with a cause, fighting for her rights, fighting for her laws, with a voice that's raw and unbound. Freddie Mercury, a name that's known so bold. A life of music, a life of music, a legend to be told. Of Bohemian Rhapsody, of Live Aid, of a life that's been lived. Two queens, two worlds apart, one born to rule, the other born to star. A life of duty, a life of fame, two queens, two worlds, a story to be claimed. In the city of love, where the lights never dim, where the music never stops and the passion never ends. In the city of love, where the queens never give in. Elizabeth's life is one of protocol, of rules and of might. A life of tradition, a life of duty, day and night. Of royal warrants, of state banquets, of a life that's been lived in the spotlight. From the moment she was born, she knew her fate. A life of service, a life of service, a weight to bear of the crown jewels of the imperial state crown, of a life that's been lived in the shadows. But Freddie's life was one of rebellion, of music and of art. A life of freedom, a life of passion, a beating heart, of Ibiza, of Studio 54. Of a life that's been lived in the fast lane. He sang of love, of life, of death and of desire. A life of music, a life of music, a flame that burned like fire. Of the great pretender, we will rock you. Of a life that's been lived in the spotlight. Two queens, two worlds apart, one born to rule, the other born to star. A life of duty, a life of fame, two queens, two worlds, a story to be claimed. In the city of love, where the lights never dim, where the music never stops and the passion never ends. In the city of love, where the queens never give in. They may seem like worlds apart, but they share a common ground. A life of sacrifice, a life of passion, a life unbound. Of the Queen's Guard, of the royal family, of a life that's been lived in the public eye. Elizabeth's duty, Freddie's music, both a call to the soul. A life of purpose, a life of music, forevermore. Of the iconic mic drop, of the legendary stage presence, of a life that's been lived in the spotlight. They may seem like worlds apart, but they share a common ground. A life of sacrifice, a life of passion, a life unbound. Of the Queen's Guard, of the royal family, of a life that's been lived in the public eye. Elizabeth's duty, Freddie's music, both a call to the soul. A life of purpose, a life of purpose, a story to be told of the crown of the Commonwealth, of a life that's been lived for the greater good. Elizabeth's reign will one day come to an end, but Freddie's music will live on, a legacy to transcend. Of the Beatles, of the Rolling Stones, of a life that's been lived in the music industry.